Good Friday evening to you. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Welcome to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. The Browns are celebrating a 35-30 win over the Bengals to go to 1-1 on the season. They now have 10 days to get ready for Week 3 and the Washington football team. The Browns were really impressive running the football against the Bengals. In fact, just ran over the Cincinnati Bengals. That set up Baker Mayfield to do what he needed to do in the passing game. It added up to Kevin Stefanski's first win as a head football coach with the Cleveland Browns.
No, I think it starts up front. We said that all week, but the offensive line played great. Those were some big holes, and those guys weren't going down by just one single guy. So it's a great effort by both our offensive line and our running backs. Those guys are real special. So that shows what we're capable of when we get that run game going. Yeah, no, it was real nice to get him his first win. He works extremely hard, and it was just a good team win for us. We had to play 60 minutes because they never gave up. They kept fighting, so we had to keep going. But, yeah, we gave him a game ball in the locker room, but it's back to work.
Stefanski was pleased with his first win of the season for the Browns and the 1-1 record, but he really wasn't getting too carried away with the Browns beating the Bengals. He was very happy with the Browns' ability to run the football and said that was one of the keys.
Yeah, I don't know so much about the morale. We don't ride the wave. We just show up and play, and we try and learn from our mistakes and be one game better each week. So it's really the guys understand that it's not a marathon; it's 16 sprints. So had our second sprint tonight, and then we're gonna look at the tape, and then guess what? We're moving on to Washington. Well, I think we should also mention Andy Janovich. I thought Andy played a really nice game. It's a different feel when he's out there. So I enjoyed seeing number 31 doing his thing. But, anytime you can, in 4 minutes, they know we're running it, we know we're running it, and it's just mano-a-mano football, and I thought the guys responded.
Now, the Browns defense did give up 30 points, and there are plenty of things to clean up, but the defensive line actually played pretty well, and they got plenty of pressure on the quarterback, which is a good thing. Browns were pretty happy with their effort that led to their first win of the year.
It's determined to get back on track. We don't want that to be our legacy, that first game, and we don't want that to be the story told about the 2020 Cleveland Browns. So we knew we had to make a stand real very fast, and tonight was the night to do it. The guys responded, and watched the film, see how we can get better, see how we can improve. We got out to the passer. Definitely some times where he held the ball a little bit longer or escaped out the pocket, where we should have corralled them. And seeing how we can keep less points on the board.
So now the Browns have 10 days to get ready for the Washington football team. Week 3, trying to go to 2-1 on the year. We're going to take a quick timeout on the other side of the break. Ellis Williams, Brown beat reporter. He will help us dive into that Thursday night football win. Ellis and I will be talking offense when More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition, returns. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, Become an Ohio State Tech subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports and less Levine. The weekend winners edition continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We've heard from the Browns about their 35-30 win over the Bengals. Now let's put it into context and analyze some things. We welcome in Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer, Ellis Williams. Ellis, as always, we appreciate the time. Let's begin on the offensive side of the ball. 35 points, that's more like it as opposed to the 6 in week 1.
Yeah, a lot to get to. After the game, I did a podcast with my colleagues, Mary Kay Cabin and Dan Labia, and we just threw out game balls. And there was a heck of a lot of game balls, specifically on the offensive end. Let's start with the offensive line and the running game. That is what we thought going into this season that the Browns offense would look like. And that's what Browns fans got Thursday night. Think about the first drive just in general. It was a lot of running, specifically running to the right, and play action passing. Quarterback keepers, which you hear quarterback keeper and you think the quarterback's keeping the ball and advancing it downfield for a gain of yards. What Kevin Stefanski means when he says QB keepers, it's off play action and moving the pocket. And whether it was to the right or to the left, Baker Mayfield did that successfully often. I think about they ran play action and they had a levels concept to the right. He had his guy open in the flats. He had his guy open intermediate. And he had his man open deep, who was Cordero Hodge, and he took that pass on the right side, gain of 15, 20 yards somewhere in there. So that's the type of offense you expect out of the Browns. It comes against one of probably the weaker defenses in the NFL, unfortunately, in the Cincinnati Bengals, who were also playing without their all-pro defensive tackle, Geno Atkins, and his backup, Mike Daniels. So, not to rain on the parade, that's not the point here. There was a lot of good things on offense from the Browns on Thursday night. But like Stefanski said after the game, and it's not just coach speak either, still plenty to clean up. So a complete game. Somehow the Browns don't cover with that 6-point backdoor cover by Joe Burrow. The defense obviously having a lot to do with that. But a complete offensive game, one where the ball is out of Baker Mayfield's hands and into the hands of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And that's what I expect Brown fans to see going forward.
Well, it's important to note as well, the Browns' offensive line, which played really well, didn't have Conklin. Conklin didn't play in that game, so they were down. I think that's, again, a really good sign is that you did what you needed to do against this opponent to put up 35 points. And that game wasn't nearly as close as a 5-point game. And think about the game on the line and the way the Browns just ran over that defense in the fourth quarter to expand the lead before the Bengals scored late.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It was one of those games where if the Browns had the ball, if the game was extended, the Browns are going to win it. They picked up 8 yards a carry. Kareem Hunt had 8.5. Nick Chubb was somewhere around 5.6. And really the box score says it all. They were 5 of 8 on third down. The Bengals converted 8 third downs, where the Browns only faced 8 third downs. I thought that was a fascinating stat, meaning that the Browns were very successful on their early downs, first and second, which is a product of the run game and the play action pass. And you're completely right. If the Browns needed to go down and score, they likely would have done it again. And you can guarantee they would have scored again. That Bengals defense was showing no resistance, especially to the run game. I'm glad you mentioned Chris Hubbard, a bit of an unsung hero there, especially after a lot of the slack he caught last year. He's your classic, in basketball terms, a sixth or seventh man who, when thrust into the starting lineup over a prolonged period of time, isn't going to be the player that they were when they were the sixth or seventh man, could come in for 12, 18 minutes a game and give you flashes of brilliance. When he's asked to do so in one or two games, and again against a weaker Bengals front, Chris Hubbard can play. He's a swing tackle, swing guard. The Browns brought him back and restructured him for this exact reason. If anything happened, really at any force spots along the offensive line, that's both tackles, both guards, he can play anywhere. And he did well with the Browns running right. They had a real advantage on that side. They pulled rookie Jedrick Wills a few times too to that right side. They're doing some creative stuff, not just simplistic zone left, zone right schemes. They're a complete running team, and that's exciting. But again, just going down the box score, 88 plays for the Bengals, 58 for the Browns. I've never seen 30 play discrepancy there. I haven't seen that. Bengals average 4 yards a play, Browns average 7.5. That was the game right there. It was just one really efficient offense versus one that is going to have some promise with Joe Burrow going forward, but you can almost lock the Bengals in for a first round, third round, and fifth round offensive lineman. Just pencil that in right now. No matter where the draft is, that's how they're going to handle it this year.
The other thing is, and you touched on it a little bit, how nice is it to see Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in tandem? Troy Aikman, who's a pretty good analyst, said repeatedly, best 1-2 punch in the NFL. And you can build a lot with that.
Yeah, it's really not close at this point when it terms of 1-2 punch, because you think of running backs, how they're supposed to complement each other, or at least you build a team in that theory where one can be the bulldozer, one can be the speed guy and get you on the outside, whatever they say, sugar and spice or power and pop, any sort of cliche you want there. These are two really similar running backs in the fact that Nick Chubb is going to beat you down, run you downhill. There was a few runs last night where he gets touched 12 yards downfield and then he carries players 6, 7, 8 yards further. I mean, his feet do not stop moving. And then Kareem Hunt comes in, and for anyone unfamiliar with Kareem Hunt, they may think, okay, he's going to come in, the Browns may be passing, he can catch the ball, did have a receiving touchdown. But it's the same type of running style. Kareem Hunt is just as downhill a back as Nick Chubb. He's just as powerful, just as fierce. Running into that man would be no fun. On the Browns' last meaningful drive there, Kareem Hunt's 11-yard touchdown, he ran specifically on the right side 3 times for 44 yards, gained nearly half his yards on that drive alone, a long run of 33 yards. And I remember him just celebrating in the end zone on that right side with, the limited fans at First Energy Stadium. But it just felt like such a moment for Kareem Hunt to come full circle, have a culminating moment like that and share it with, of course, a city and area in which he's from. So it's an understatement to say they're the best 1-2 punch in the league. These are two of probably the top 5 and definitely top 10 backs in the NFL.
When you look at that, doesn't that scream, let's just run people out? I mean, they want to bludgeon people running the football, and they've got 2 backs to do it. So you better get ready for 60 minutes of we're going to run at you, and we've got a guy in the backfield that can run you over or run by you.
Yeah, it's a really important advantage to have. Ask any quarterback. Sure, quarterbacks enjoy throwing touchdowns and getting big yards. That's always going to be the truth. But what a lot of them enjoy even more is just turning around, handing the football off, and dominating an opposing defense. There isn't a better feeling. Hand it off, watch your guys run forward for 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. Your night becomes pretty easy, and that's exactly what Baker Mayfield had. And in terms of what this means for the Browns going forward in the run game, teams aren't going to want to face this rushing attack. There's just no way around that. These linemen are big, and they're bruising you up. Andy Jonovich was effective in lead blocking last night. He's a focal point of this offense, leading in the holes like that. So linebackers are going to see him. And then once you get past the front and the fullback, now good luck tackling Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. There's not a team on the schedule that wants to face the Browns' rushing attack, but that means this team needs to both have leads in games and that allows them then to continue running the ball going forward. We saw what happens against a team like the Ravens, or, even a team that, I'm just saying, gets a lead on the Browns, that play action becomes less effective. You can't run the ball as much. But as long as the Browns can play with a lead and stay committed to a run game, I wrote about it in the offseason, I don't see why the Browns shouldn't attempt to lead the league in rushing attempts. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb should both get 15 rushing attempts minimum a game. That was the formula last night, and I'm sure Kevin Stefanski wants to keep doing that going forward.
Let's flip things a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Baker Mayfield. Significantly better than week one. What did you see in looking over Baker Mayfield, his performance against the Bengals?
Yeah, so reminder that this game is only about 12 hours removed for me. Long night for all of us involved. Haven't got a chance to go back and watch the tape specifically of Baker Mayfield. I was focusing on the D-line this morning when I did rewatch the first half before we had to get on here. But Baker, let's start here. He came out looking great, came out hot. That's what all the morning shows are talking about, how he came out on fire, and that's the Baker Mayfield you want to see. And that's the truth. I said it at the top of the show already. When Kevin Stefanski can get him moving, QB keeper, change his launching points, and get him playing with momentum and rhythm, he's a good quarterback. He's got that arm, will always be talented. It'll always be accurate when he's in rhythm. That's so key when I say that. He will always be accurate when he's in rhythm. But the interception, you can't have it. I need to see the all-22. I need to watch it again. But from what I saw live, he just didn't see that high safety. It was a play-action shot to Harrison Bryant that is probably money in practice, and he just didn't see it. Your franchise quarterback can't average one interception a game. I believe Mary Kay said last night that was his 8th straight game with that. So that, like Stefanski said, there's good, there's bad, there's a lot to clean up. So when he can come out like that and play hot, play with rhythm, play with confidence, he's solid, but the pick can't happen. And in the game plan, there are some signs there that still make me wonder about Baker Mayfield going forward. Kevin Stefanski clearly wants him throwing between 22 and 28 times, under 30. And is that a $40 million a year guy like Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes? Probably not. But we kind of figured Baker wasn't headed that way anyway. He needs to be Kirk Cousins. He needs to be Ryan Tannehill or Jimmy Garoppolo. I've written about that before, and he looked like that last night.
Yeah, what happened is it looked like the safety kind of showed like he was blitzing, and kind of when he saw where the play was going, he read it. Yeah. And you're right. You gotta realize when the call is made what is going to happen, and that's second, third level there. The other thing is, keep in mind, can we expect, because there was no preseason, there wasn't any really live scrimmaging, can you expect significant growth from game to game? Because it is a new offense, it is a new defense at game speed. I mean, that's going to be a challenge for any first-year head coach, and I think there was a significant progress that you would want to see from the Browns from game 1 to game 2, and it should be again in game 3.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and we really do need to keep that in mind. I think it's a good preface to have that this is a team that has no continuity. I mean, the only coordinator returning was the special teams coach, and he's not the one drawing up plays for Baker Mayfield in this offense. So it's really important to keep in mind. They did not look good at the handful of practices I saw in training camp. And at that scrimmage, we wrote plenty about how the second offensive group looked better than the first. That was a completely different offense last night than I saw in training camp. So you're 100% right about that. And if that progress continues, then we can revisit this Baker Mayfield conversation and the offense as a whole going forward. They've got some tough defensive fronts coming up. Not that will be a huge issue with the offensive line being a strength. Also, but Baker Mayfield still is having a real problem with batted down footballs. It wasn't a glaring issue last night, but against talented defensive lines, I want to see if that continues. And that is more of a player problem than it is necessarily an offensive system problem. So there's just little stuff with Baker here and there. Again, like you said, to start that question, the interception, you need to be able to read at the third level there, pre-snap to post-snap. I wrote about his interception in Baltimore. Similar play, despite one being a defensive lineman intercepting him and one being a safety. His eyes are giving him different messages pre-snap and post-snap, and he needs to clean that up. And if that does change going forward, we'll revisit this Baker Mayfield question, I'm sure.
We'll wrap up. Let's wrap up the offense talking about Odell Beckham. A lot was made leading into this game. There's not a chemistry. They're not on the same page. Is that a real thing? Is that something that you can chalk up to, new offensive system as well? What do you make of that whole chemistry thing with Baker Mayfield and Odell? And it was great to see him get a touchdown and get him involved early.
Yeah, let's start with the touchdown. Great play. Again, Kevin Stefanski got Baker Mayfield outside the pocket. Odell hit William Jackson, I believe, with a double move of the Bengals cornerback. The Bengals were exposed a bit last week versus the Chargers. Both their corners, they were targeted 9 and 6 times respectively. So that tells an offense that we think we can beat these guys, and that's exactly what Kevin Stefanski dialed up right away for Odell Beckham Jr. He got Beckham outside one-on-one, hit the corner with a double move out and up, and Baker threw a beautiful ball on him. I thought Beckham could have kept his feet and walked into the end zone to save the review and possible 1 yard. But when you haven't been in the end zone as long as Odell Beckham Jr., you're going to do everything to guarantee the catch. So he goes to the ground, secures it. I've said this about Beckham before. Wide receivers in general, keeping them happy is a 3 in formula ingredient, okay? They need yards, they need touchdowns, and they need wins. Odell got those 3 things last night. So he'll be happy going into the short bye week. And with the offense going forward, you do worry about the disconnect still, because he only had 1 catch in the second half. I think it was 1 catch for 3 yards. And he doesn't appear still to be fully integrated in this offense. He'll never be a focal point. Rewatching the Baltimore game, he actually had a second drop that I thought was pretty egregious. So Odell needs to be involved early or he's going to check out. And this is still a work in progress. I think the entire deep passing game of this team is a work in progress. Anything 15 yards and further downfield, and especially anything outside the numbers. So I'm going to answer it with the way you ended the last question. Let's talk about Baker and Odell around Thanksgiving. That'll have a good idea of where Baker and Odell are going forward, because by then we're going to have, season and a half of Odell Beckham and Baker together and a half a season in Kevin Stefanski's offense. If they don't have it figured out by then and we're still having chemistry questions, then I think the answer takes care of itself.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside and take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, not some good things going on the defensive side of the football. Ellis and I will talk defense of the Browns. Again, the Browns win Thursday night, 35-30. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Wow! Get Nature's Stone and never replace your garage flooring again. Act now for huge summer savings on our exclusive Nature's Blend Stone, as low as $2.99 a square foot plus installation. Only Nature's Stone eliminates cracked, uneven concrete, and Nature's Stone never peels like cheap paints and coatings. Safe, beautiful garage flooring that's always backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature's Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to continue talking Browns football after their 35-30 win over the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. We're going to welcome Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com back in. Ellis, the defense, not great. What are some areas of concern? We'll start with the areas of concern. There were a couple of areas that I thought were really good. Areas of concern for this defense.
Yeah, Dave, I was just going to ask, do you want to start with the good, the bad, or the other? So we'll go with concern. I hear you there. It remains this linebacking group, and I'll group the box safeties in there. It's a run-stopping concern in terms of linebackers, and that might sound strange when the Browns performed well against the Ravens rushing attack and then only allowed 68 rushing yards to a talented runner like Joe Mixon last night. But the linebackers aren't. The defensive line is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the run defense. We'll start there. And then in coverage, once again, the linebackers and box safeties cannot stay in front a lot of these slot receivers. The Bengals last night had a lot of success throwing to the middle of the field. It was the same thing the Ravens were able to do. It felt like whenever Joe Burrow needed 4 or 5, 6 yards, he could just look between those hash marks, maybe a little wider, but inside the numbers regardless, and find an open receiver. Tyler Boyd. They had 2 different tight ends have some work. T. Higgins was involved a little bit. And that is what's so concerning about this defense, is because that's the NFL these days. You're throwing it across the middle because these players in space, you can't touch them. And when you don't have the athletes to stay in front of them, you get exposed. It's what's happening with this team, whether it's zone, whether it's man. I know I'm now talking outside the numbers, but I think of that early 4th down, the pick play. Tavierre Thomas just gets a simple rub play. They're playing at the same level at the line of scrimmage, and that can't happen. It's a concerning group whenever someone is lined up in the slot or a tight end lined up off tackle. I just have no confidence that the Browns are going to be able to get stops. And going forward, this offense is going to have to win shootouts. It's really how the Browns are going to be able to string together maybe 6, 7, 8, who knows, 9 wins here. But if they even want to stay in the realm of playoff possibility, the Browns offense is going to win games, not the defense.
Is there a guy that is banged up that could come back and help? I know, you realize Grant Delpit's done for the year. He would look awfully good is one of those box safeties. Does a Kevin Johnson or a Mack Wilson coming back help? Is there help can we get help anywhere for that group on the field?
I hear you. Last week after the game, we're doing a live podcast after the show, just kind of free chatting. And it was funny. I came on and we were talking about how Ronnie Harrison, like he was going to be the savior of this defense and the box safety group. He played 6 snaps last night. Pro Football Focus already has their grades out. He graded at a 30. 50 is below average. 65 is about average. So you can see he had a really bad game. In his defense, he only played 6 snaps, so this is not a rain on Ronnie parade. I can't even tell you the snaps he was on the field, to be quite honest. I need to go back and look at it. But that's concerning on the surface because he's a guy I thought could come in. I did a film study on him when the Browns acquired him, looking at his Jacksonville tape. He does have some promise. I'm not going to let that grade ruin his season, but it makes you really wonder if anyone coming back can help. You mentioned Mack Wilson. You mentioned Kevin Johnson. I'm excited to see Kevin. He's a guy who, again, cannot remain healthy. The best availability or the best ability sometimes is availability, and he needs to be out there to prove that. And Mack Wilson, yeah, he's a guy that the Browns desperately need, but again, he's not anyone who's going to completely flip this defense. I think the Browns have made their bed, so to speak, with this defense, and that puts a lot of pressure on the Browns offense going forward then.
Let's flip some things to some good things. Denzel Ward had a great game against A.J. Green. I think he was targeted something like 13 times and only had 3 or 4 receptions. And that's a guy that is a tough physical matchup for Denzel Ward, and he played well.
Yeah, Denzel had a nice game. Unfortunately, you see him give up that touchdown on a pick play, and that stands out, but that's not anything to focus on. That's a really tough play to cover. They probably were in a wrong call there, and they should check to push the coverage down and just switch if doing so there on the goal line. It's a tough situation, and sometimes better offense just beats good defense. But as for AJ Green and Ward's coverage on him, it was textbook. It was what the Browns need to see out of their former 4th overall pick. I've stated this question a few times in the offseason, as early as a couple days ago with my colleagues. Ask yourself this question. What player on the Browns defense outside of Myles Garrett is any offense afraid of? It's a tough question to answer. It needs to become Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward needs to become a guy that teams don't throw at. But you just said it yourself and how much they targeted Ward. They weren't afraid to try him. Now, you don't get crowned until you get proven. And perhaps this is one of those games Denzel can, put in his hat and say, all right, here's the feather. Other offenses, now I'm back. I'm still legit. So we'll see how teams target him going forward. If they continue not to be afraid of him, then I do worry what that means. But it doesn't change the fact that you're right. He, for the most part, locked up AJ Green, a guy, an all-pro, possibly a future Hall of Famer. Pro Football Focus graded Denzel Ward out at a 76 overall. It's a great game for him and a real promising piece going forward when we're talking about all the problems this team has in coverage.
Let's talk a little bit about the line. Just your reaction to the way the defensive line played. They're going to have to be outstanding for this defense to be average.
Bingo. The degree of error is slim to none, and it puts so much pressure on Myles Garrett. He can handle it. He's paid to handle it, and he balled out last night, quite frankly. The one play that not even Vegas can predict is that strip fumble across the NFL. It's the hardest play it's a chance thing because you can sack the quarterback, but when you're able to get your hands on the football and swing possessions and swing field position like that, to me, it's one of the biggest game-changing plays in football. And Myles Garrett was able to do that. Going in, everyone knew the Browns' defensive line had a huge advantage against the Bengals' offensive line, which I've already talked about. It's probably the worst offensive line in football. But you still got to prove it. You still got to go out and win the matchup. And across the board, they did that. Myles Garrett, Adrian Claiborne, Jordan Elliott, the rookie, had a nice game. Sheldon Richardson continues to be a consummate pro. And his sack was impressive. He was hitting Joe Mixon in the backfield a few times. Even Porter Gustin getting in there. All these players graded in the top 10 of the Browns defensive players on PFF. So that tells you what you need to know. It's a group that will carry this defense. And I couldn't say it better. For this defense to even be average, the defensive line has to play perfect.
Is there room for them to play even better? Richardson, you could see he was creating problems early. And then I think they kind of slid. And then, guys, it's a domino effect. If you're going to cover Richardson, Ogunjobi or Myles Garrett or Gustin's going to get at it. Do they have the wherewithal to take it up to the level the Browns really need them to?
Yeah, I forgot to mention Larry Ogunjobi there. Glad you did. He's another guy, potential contract extension guy playing for big money right now. He's someone to keep an eye on, despite how poor this defense may play going forward. Just in the future roster building of the Browns, he's a guy to keep watching. He's playing for big money, and he played well yesterday. Can they play better? I'll say this. Sure, everyone can always play better. They can be schemed better. I think it's real innovative what Kiffin and Joe Woods are doing with this defensive line. They're flashing double A-gap blitzes, which Mike Zimmer coined in Minnesota. Their Myles Garrett's sack was actually, I think it must have been on some sort of stunt, or perhaps he just was lined up inside and he beat one of the Bengals guards who are even weaker than their tackles, if that's even possible, and was able to get that sack. So it's innovative, it's creative to see and deploy your athletes along the defensive line like this. It's a lot of what the 49ers did last year and found success. So Joe Woods knows exactly what he wants out of a defensive line, molding it after the 49ers. And I'll say this when it comes to if they can play better. They played phenomenal last night, but the quarterback for the Bengals made them look like they weren't playing as well. He was still hit 6 times. He was also hit 6 times against the Chargers, but Joe Burrow gets the ball out quick. He looked like a real professional last night. It was almost like an LSU light version of Joe Burrow. We're going to see the Browns defensive line show up, get more sacks, live behind the line of scrimmage even more against a team like, say, Washington, who doesn't have Joe Burrow, but still has a young quarterback who's going to be way more indecisive, hold on to the ball way longer. And that's the type of game where they'll play just like they did on Thursday, but they'll show up more in the stat sheet and behind the line of scrimmage because the quarterback will be the difference maker ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Joe Burrow did not play like a guy in his second NFL game without question. He's going to be really good. Before we turn the page from the defense, are these some of the things the Browns anticipated? Because we talked earlier, quite a bit earlier in the year, that you can't fill all the holes, and there were some holes the Browns kind of knew they had on the defensive side of the ball. I think injuries have magnified them a little bit, but I think this is kind of the defense the Browns kind of knew they were going to have heading into the year.
Yeah, we talked about it all offseason. Who are going to be the linebackers? Who's going to step up? And they wanted to give their young guys a chance and see what they have. Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski clearly know or have a really good inkling that this is a long-term plan. So they wanted to see Jacob Phillips. They wanted to see Mack Wilson. They wanted to see Grant Delpit and see how they could create in space and how they could move sideline to sideline. And so far, they're not going to have any tape to go off when they build this roster forward. And I said it earlier, they've really made this bet, and this is the defense they're going to have. So yes, they're going to continue to get pressure up front, not be able to cover anyone in the middle, hope that teams avoid Denzel Ward and that Greedy Williams gets back and can turn into another version of Ward and these corners can be solidified. And then the offense again will have to carry them. This is just what they've decided to do with the roster. I'm not Kevin Clark of The Ringer yet. I can't get Andrew Berry to sit down with me one-on-one and ask him that question of, hey, with the true serum in hand, were you truly expecting this defense to stop anyone in the slot or any opposing tight ends? Because every tight end's going to have a good week versus the Browns. So on paper, it looks like they were ready for this. On the field, it sure looks like this is going to be a trend going forward. And to me, that tells me that both, first, they wanted to give their young guys a chance, and second, this is a 2-3 year plan building the defense, not a win-now defense.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to take one more time out. On the back side of it, we'll talk a little bit about Kevin Stefanski and look forward as the Browns have a long off week, 10 days off until Game 3. More sports and less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your 4-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Labbe, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to continue talking Browns coming off a 35-30 win over Bengals on Thursday Night Football. Let's welcome in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Ellis, week one for Kevin Stefanski, a little uneven as far as, game plan, coaching, some decisions early in that. I thought he was pretty good. Pretty solid game two. I liked what I saw. I liked the adjustments. He looked much more kind of in control and definitely definitive about what he wanted to do. I didn't get that sense in the first week.
Yeah, that first week must have just been very difficult considering everything involved. I mean, a shortened offseason, a pandemic, no continuity. I mean, think about how many players did Kevin even have a chance to meet prior to training camp opening up? It's as unprecedented as it gets, and then you face the defending AFC North champions, Lamar Jackson, and improved secondary in Baltimore. It's just, you couldn't script a worse opening game opponent for Kevin Stefanski. But then you get the Bengals in a short week, mind you, so he deserves credit for that too. He got this team ready on 5 days, and they look like the Kevin Stefanski everyone expected. Running right, zone, they're even pulling some counters in there. I said that this offensive line is being creative in the way they're deploying their athletes and allowing these holes to open up for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And you're right, Kevin Stefanski looked like he put his stamp on the game, and he did it right away in the start. He's getting Baker outside, and that's what I expect him to keep doing that. From everything I've heard in Minnesota, that this is the foundation he's not only built last year in Minnesota, but that he fell in love with Gary Kubiak. It wasn't just last year that Kevin Stefanski became obsessed with Gary Kubiak, quarterback keepers, play action passes, and a quick passing game. This goes back to 2006, 7, 8, 9, when Kevin Stefanski was just a young kid watching tape, trying to get his foot in the door of an NFL building. This is what he has trained his whole life to do, build an offense and lead an organization this way. And that's exactly what Browns fans saw last night. So going forward for Kevin Stefanski, it's going to be take the ball out of Baker's hands, lean on your strengths, control the clock. It almost would have been better if the Browns wouldn't have had such quick drives. They kept giving it back to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But it's got to be a great feeling for Kevin Stefanski to get this first one, because 1-1 feels a whole lot different than 0-2, especially losing to an in-state rival and the former number one pick, Joe Burrow. So Kevin Stefanski starting off on the right foot in Cleveland despite a tough opening week against the Ravens.
You mentioned, leaning on what you do best. It certainly seems like any time they needed 3-4 yards, they were going to rely on the run game. Is that something you expect to continue to see?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll give you this. When they did need 2-3 yards on that fourth down by the goal line, they didn't get it, and they ran the ball. And I need to make this so clear, and it's so abundantly clear. I am 100% okay and in endorsement of that call, that decision. In a perfect world, Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield just connect on that third down pass play, and we're not even talking about this. But when you need it, Kevin Stefanski already proved he has some gotta-have-him plays. He can scheme guys open, and he can pick up critical fourth down when he needs it. You're not going to show all your gadget plays in one game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So he looked at the down and distance, understood the advantage that the Browns had running right against the Bengals, and he handed it off to Nick Chubb, who had 124 yards rushing, and thought he could pick up 2 yards. And you know what? He was dang close. And I know dang close doesn't count in football, and especially near the goal line, but that's the type of play where probably 7 times out of 10, Nick Chubb converts that. So I'm fine with it. So, yeah, they're going to keep running. They're probably going to keep running right. Jack Conklin didn't even play last night, and it was one of the best running games I've ever seen. And that's where Kevin Stefanski is going to keep relying in the offense, because having the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands, we've seen, is not how Kevin Stefanski wants to build this offense. And whether it's Baker or Kirk Cousins, he didn't do it last year either. So Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, go, get them in fantasy leagues. It's full steam ahead with those two.
Well, and the other thing is later in the season, after you've built tendencies, that's when you could very well see them do some sort of play action and take in, they max protect and they take shots deep. But they're not going to do that until they have the advantage of having run over people for a while.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when you can just manhandle teams up front, you're going to keep pushing them forward. And I agree with you on the tendencies part, but sometimes you're just better than the opposing team up front, and your running backs are going to make up for any mistake they might make up front. So you can figure the Browns out, but if you don't have the athletes, the bodies, and the dedication to stop them, you're not going to stop the run. So now you have 8 guys in the box, and theoretically that allows Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry to make plays like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs did last year. So this offense is building, and I'm excited to see what it looks like against Washington.
And you mentioned that. Takes me to my next question. You get Washington, and you have alluded to it. That's a team with a young quarterback who probably isn't quite as advanced, and it sounds silly, as the guy in his second NFL game. So it'll be very interesting to see what this defense does against Washington's offense.
Yeah, I think this will be a 100% and clear test for the Browns defense, and we'll have a full understanding of what they're going to be. Because really, they are going down the quarterback tier, if you will. You start with Lamar Jackson. All right, MVP, going to run this league for a long time. Then you get Joe Burrow, who clearly looks like the future possible MVP candidate and a longtime starter in this league. And then you get Dwayne Haskins, who, much like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, the quarterbacks in that tier, there's still a lot of question marks. And Baker's proven more than Dwayne Haskins, of course, but lumping them in a pool of this quarterback probably isn't going to win us games. We need to build the offense differently group. That's where Haskins falls. And that's where the defense, if they can come out, hold Washington to, 6, 9, 12, 14 points, 17 points, keep them under 20, somewhere in there. Washington hasn't played yet this week with the Browns playing on Thursday night. So we'll learn a lot more about this Washington team this week, but it's a great opportunity for the Browns defense to not only punch another team in the mouth, but also gain some confidence. Lesser athletes can still play at a heightened level when they tell themselves they can do so. So you get punched in the mouth with the Ravens, you get a future probably MVP candidate in Joe Burrow. Now this defense has a chance to build itself up against Washington. And if they do so, now we're talking about the Browns as 8-8, 9-17 possibly.
Let's look other side of the ball. This defensive front for the Redskins is something that the Browns are going to have to account for. As they're young, but they've got some talent.
Yeah, Chase Young's there, and they've had talent across this defensive line for a while now. It's a sneaky unit that the Browns will, of course, be ready for, but I don't want fans to be surprised if Baker looks a little disgruntled or if the offense is slow to get going. This shouldn't surprise anyone. The surprise happened last week when Washington came back from 17-0 down. If you read about it, a heightened halftime speech from Dwayne Haskins because their coach, Ron Rivera, was getting an IV due to his chemotherapy treatments treating the form of cancer he's dealing with. And it's an inspiring football team. They're coming off one heck of a win. A lot of question marks in Philadelphia, which bodes well for the Browns in general with their NFC East schedule. But it's a team you definitely can't sleep on. But the defensive front as a whole it's stronger than the Browns unit. It's probably a top 5 units somewhere, and then they're able to build behind that, much like the Browns are trying to do. So they're two defenses in similar places, just more overall talent probably up front. So it's going to be, though not a game that, it's going to be Fox's America game of the week. It's going to be a real test and something Browns fans can find a way to learn a lot about this team going forward, I think.
And if the Browns have, if they want to have the type of year they expect to have, this a game, again, much like the Thursday night game, they have to have the game against the Washington football team. I slipped there with the old nickname, the Washington football team. But this is really, again, a must-have game for the Browns to have a successful season.
Yeah, I'm trying to get used to when I'm reading stories, WFT. And usually you see the letters WFT in a different order. You think a little differently. Not safe for work stuff here, but I digress. Yeah, it's in the NFL, especially when you're an average team or a young team trying to build towards something or, break into the playoffs for the first time in what feels like forever. I know for Browns fans, and really kind of is ever. You need to win not only your home games, but you need to beat your lesser opponents at home. They did that Thursday. Washington is the exact same test, and they've got 10 days to do it now. So there's not going to be really any excuses. They'll have time to game plan, and they'll have time to get healthy. This defense is so beat up. They'll get healthy. Jack Conklin hopefully back. So you're going to most likely get a full-strength Browns with 10 days to plan at home versus Washington. It should be the Browns' best game of the season. There's not many excuses for it not to be.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here for cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. As always, we appreciate the insight and the time. I'm sure we'll be checking in with Ellis throughout the season here on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Great stuff, Ellis. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Take care.
We are all out of time on this edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be back next Friday right here, same time, same place. And Les Levine will be back in the chair Monday from 6 to 7. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. We'll see you again next Friday.